So it seems for years we've been hearing a larger iMac is coming soon, and this year is no different, guys. Mark Gurman once again gives us an update regarding it releasing soon, so let's delve into it. According to his sources, Apple's in the early stages of developing an iMac that could be 32 inches. Now that's all Gurman tells us, and frankly I'm surprised it's still in early development. We've been told this was in the works for quite a while now, so I was under the assumption we were close to release at this point. But no, it seems like this won't even release till late 2024 or early 2025. Either way, I guess I should be grateful this is in the works in the first place, and I'm expecting this large iMac to be quite different compared to the regular size. For one, we could see black bezels, since this is supposed to be a more high-end machine, and I know some of you guys might see this as an upgrade, but I can't lie, the white bezels have grown on me completely. It might sound blasphemous, but I quite like the 24-inch iMac's design now, so I would not mind if the larger iMac looked identical, but considering it should get internal upgrades, I still think there will be black bezels to fit the Pro aesthetic, along with, of course, a space grey finish. Essentially, this should look like the old iMac Pro, but of course, without the Apple logo on the front, and also slimmer bezels. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. But now let's talk about the internal upgrades, because unlike the 24-inch, which only came with the M1, this larger model could get the Max and the Pro variants of Apple's SoCs, because this iMac's going to have a much larger thermal envelope, and so this very much is going to be an alternative option to the Mac Studio and the Mac Mini. So yes, you get to choose. You either have the flexibility of a desktop and have the computer and monitor as separate devices, or you could pay less and get the all-in-one experience. Now yes, I'm aware the iMac might sound like a worse deal on paper, because when it loses support, the display that's still perfectly fine becomes completely redundant, because you can't use older iMacs as monitors, whereas with a Studio display and Mac Studio you can of course continue using the display and just replace the computer. However, I think some just prefer less cluttered, all-in-one experience, and considering the iMac's a famous product in Apple's Mac range, they can't really kill this off. Plus, with the era of Apple Silicon, you don't have to worry too much about support. This hypothetical iMac Pro could get updates for a decade or more, and so you should still get your money's worth, even if the display becomes completely useless. Now, I know some people in the comments have requested Apple to offer a larger version of the base iMac as well, because not everyone needs the additional performance, but I think the chances are pretty low of that happening, because frankly, all-in-ones are not very popular in the first place, and so to offer another variant of a niche product that appeals to a very small portion of consumers doesn't make sense for Apple. So if you want the bigger screen, guys, you have no option but to pay for the additional performance. Now, to be fair, this was the case before Apple Silicon as well, so I think it makes sense for Apple to continue doing this. Plus, if you want the big display experience for much less, just buy the Studio display with the Mac Mini. Anyways, how much could this iMac Pro be? Well, Gurman does not tell us, of course. So simply theorizing, I'm going to say somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000. That is steep, yes, but performance-wise, this should be on par with a 16-inch, and also offers a much larger display, so the price is justified. Also, since the Mac Studio is now in the range, anything lower than $2,500 for this iMac could possibly cannibalize that in the range, and so yes, I think somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000 makes the most sense. I do want to emphasize though that Apple's been surprising us with Mac pricing as of late. The M2 Mac Mini, for example, was $100 cheaper than expected, and also many of us thought the 15-inch MacBook Air would be $1,500 or $1,600, but no, again, it was a lot cheaper than expected. And so Apple could surprise us with the pricing for this and give us a much lower price, at least in the US, because as always outside of the US, for us folks, pricing is always going to be a mess. Now, the performance won't be the only aspect the iMac has to justify the price. It should also hopefully get mini LED. Now, there's been no evidence of this, but we have heard a lot about standalone mini LED panels that Apple's developing, and in fact, a Pro Display successor is allegedly in the works that could be 32 inches and also offer high resolution mini LED panels. So this could basically be the panel Apple borrows for the iMac Pro, since remember right now Apple's reusing the iconic 5K 27-inch panels the larger iMac had for many years with the studio display, so Apple could do the same here where of course the Pro display and the iMac Pro basically share the same displays, and that's going to be cheaper and also easier for their supply chain. Plus both these products are not going to sell in massive numbers, and so yes, Tim being the supply guy, I can see the same displays being reused across these products. So that's everything regarding this larger iMac, and I'm hoping there are no more delays, and instead of these vague reports about how it's coming soon, we actually get the final product within the next year or so. Now I do want to mention that for those who don't need the big display, we do have a new version of the smaller iMac releasing in early 2024. Now this is currently the only Apple Silicon machine using M1, and considering it's too late to give this M2 and also M2 is not that big of an upgrade in the first place, jumping to M3 instead makes sense. I think the only bottleneck right now is the low yield rates, because these are based on 3nm, but that should be sorted pretty soon and should pave the way for the release for this 24-inch M3 iMac refresh. It is kinda crazy though that if we do see this M3 model launch in March or April next year, that would be a whole 3 years of no hardware changes for this machine, and so that just perfectly illustrates my previous point. All-in-ones are not very popular anymore. People would rather buy laptops and desktops, and Apple's rapidly updating those models because they're very much in demand, but because the iMac's a very iconic brand, they can't kill this off, and so they're keeping it for the small portion of consumers that want this, or the handful of schools who still buy this, but they're going to do the very minimum in terms of upgrades, and so expect this to not always get the newest M series chip inside. To be fair, right now the lack of an M2 is not that big of a deal breaker because it's not that big of an upgrade, but if we do get bigger leaps in the future with M4, M5, M6, etc., there is a chance the iMac is late to getting these changes. Also expect the iMac to only get spec refreshes in the foreseeable future. This was already the case before Apple Silicon, since before the M1 redesign, the last iMac design was reused for over a decade, and so I'm expecting the same to happen here where the current 2021 design could stay well into the 2030s. So if you're not a fan of the current design, guys, unfortunately you're going to have to get used to it, and rumors already pointing out that externally the 24-inch M3 model's not changing that much, and might even keep the same range of colors, which is surprising because at the very least Apple usually always gives us new colors. For example, the iPhone 14 looks identical to the iPhone 13, but of course it did get some new colors. However, Apple can't even be asked to do that for the iMac, so yes, once again that illustrates how little they care about this machine. In fact, once we eventually get that larger iMac, also expect that to not be updated as frequently as more popular products, and yeah, that is unfortunate, but I can see why Apple's doing this. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.